He had never lost. 6 races, 6 wins, and on the first Saturday in May, he won the Kentucky Derby by 6.5 lengths, the widest margin any horse had managed in 60 years. Handicappers ran out of superlatives. Men who had spent 40 years around a sport called him the One, the horse built to end the drought, the horse who would finally win the Triple Crown. 2 weeks later, he ran less than 100 yards. Yet the leg that shattered that afternoon at Pimlico was never what killed him. So what kills a horse who survives the very thing that should have ended him? What killed Barbaro came later, and it came from a place no camera was ever pointed. The story begins not at a starting gate in Maryland, but on a breeding farm in Pennsylvania. Barbaro was homebred, foaled in April of 2003 by Roy and Gretchen Jackson of Lale Stables in the Pennsylvania countryside. No auction ring, no 7-figure hammer price, no bidding war, just a bay colt raised on grass. His trainer was a man named Michael Matz, and Matz had not come up through the shed rows the way most trainers do. He had been an Olympic show jumper, a silver medalist, the man chosen to carry the American flag into the stadium at Atlanta in 1996. In racing, he was an outsider, and he trained Barbaro like one. He gave the colt long, unhurried rests between starts. The backstretch had a word for it. They called him too cautious, the most careful man on the grounds. Matz let them talk. He knew something about survival that the men at the rail did not, though it would be a long while before anyone understood why. On paper, the doubt made sense. Barbaro had made his name on turf, winning his first 4 starts over grass, a surface that rewards a different kind of horse than the dirt of the classics. When Matz pointed him toward the Kentucky Derby, he was asking the colt to prove himself on ground he had barely run. The racing world noticed. Grass horses did not win the Derby. That was close to a law. Then came the Florida Derby in April, his first real test on dirt against real competition. He won it, but he won it narrowly, and the narrowness fed the skeptics. Beatable, they said. A turf horse flattered by soft company. When the Derby field was set, Barbaro went off as only the second choice in the betting, undefeated in 5 starts and still not believed. 5 wins, no losses, and the morning line still put another horse in front of him. The doubt was not stupid. It was simply about to be answered. May 6th, 2006, Churchill Downs. 20 horses loaded into the gate, and the second choice broke clean and ran away from all of them. Barbaro won the Kentucky Derby by 6.5 lengths. No horse had won it by that margin in 60 years, not since Assault in 1946, and he became only the 6th undefeated horse in the long history of the race to wear the roses. The doubt did not survive the stretch. The grass horse who could not win on dirt had just won the most important dirt race in the world, and he had not been asked for everything. The men who had called him beatable spent the next 2 weeks calling him something else. The One. It had been 28 years since affirmed, 28 years without a Triple Crown, and here at last was the colt who looked like he could carry it to the wire. He shipped to Baltimore the clear favorite. Everything the sport had waited for was 2 races away, and the first of them was the Preakness. May 20th, Pimlico, the Preakness. Before the race even began, there was a moment the cameras caught and then moved past. Barbaro broke through the gate early, a false start, his head striking the metal as the starters pulled him back. Whether that moment mattered, whether it meant anything at all, no one has ever been able to say for certain. The field was called back, settled, and sent on its way a second time. He ran perhaps 100 yards. Then his jockey, Edgar Prado, felt everything go wrong beneath him and stood up in the irons, hauling with all his weight to stop a horse that was still trying to run. What Prado was stopping was a catastrophe. The right hind leg had shattered. The cannon bone, the sesamoid, the pastern, more than 20 pieces of bone, the fetlock joint driven out of place. It was not a fracture, it was a demolition. The crowd at Pimlico understood before the announcer did. 100,000 people watched the favorite pull up on 3 legs, and the sound that went through the grandstand was not cheering. Grown men at the rail wept where they stood. The horse who was going to win the Triple Crown held up a leg that was no longer a leg. And every camera in America was pointed at exactly the wrong thing. What the cameras missed began the next morning, 40 miles away, at the new Bolton Center in Pennsylvania. There, a surgeon named Dean Richardson worked for 5 hours to rebuild a leg out of more than 20 fragments. He anchored it with a locking compression plate and 27 screws, and he fused the joints that could no longer hold on their own. Richardson had operated on catastrophic injuries before. He said he had never seen one this bad. And here the story returns to Michael Matz. Because 17 years earlier, in 1989, Matz had been a passenger on United Flight 232 when it crashed and broke apart in a field in Sioux City, Iowa. He pulled 3 children from the wreckage, and then he went back into it for an infant. The man they had called too cautious knew exactly what it cost to survive something no one was meant to survive. Now he stood outside a recovery pool, watching a horse fight the same fight. And for a while it looked like Barbaro was winning it. The country decided he was theirs. New Bolton took in sacks of get-well cards, flowers, buckets of carrots, sent to a horse by people who had never touched him. On the 29th of January 2007, 8 months after Pimlico, Barbaro was euthanized. His owner, Roy Jackson, said it plainly. "We just reached a point where it was going to be difficult for him to go on without pain. It was the right decision. It was the right thing to do." Here is what the cameras missed. The shattered right hind leg, the demolition, the 27 screws, all of it had healed. What killed Barbaro was laminitis, and it came in the 2 front hooves that were never hurt at all. For 8 months, the sound legs had carried the weight the broken one could not, and the body that saved the leg destroyed the whole. He did not die of the injury the world watched. He died of the 8 months no one did. He died of the cure. He never came home from Baltimore the way they meant it. He never ran the Belmont, never wore the Triple Crown. But he was laid to rest at the gate of Churchill Downs, the track that made him, and a bronze statue rose there to keep watch over him. The fund that carries his name has pushed the science of saving horses forward ever since. He came home after all, just to the front gate, and not the way anyone wanted. Was Barbaro's story a tragedy, or the moment an entire sport finally changed how it fights for its horses? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching.